Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to welcome you to the Foreign Policy Forum organized by the Democratic Party and thank you for your presence here. Cyprus at the crossroad of developments in Europe and the Middle East is the general title of the forum, and this is the second event of an important institution that aims at exchanging views, enhancing dialogue and producing political thought on foreign policy issues. Today, we are going to address three thematic sessions, and we will have the pleasure to hear the views and analysis of distinguished speakers in their respective fields. I would like to thank Their Excellencies the ambassadors and the members of the diplomatic missions that honor us with their presence here today. I would also like to thank the dignitaries of the Democratic Party and all of you who are with us today, showing in practice your interest in these very important and topical issues. We will begin with the first thematic session titled Turkish Revisionism in the Middle East in the light of developments in Syria, alliances and new equilibrium. I would like to call to the floor the first speaker, the President of the Democratic Party, Mr. Nicholas Papadopoulos. Honorable members of the House of Representatives, dear Eleni, dear Professor, distinguished guests, dear ambassadors. Firstly, please allow me to congratulate the foreign policy team of the Democratic Party for this beautiful event, the Foreign Policy Forum. I would also like to thank in particular the speakers of the thematic sessions who will present to us, I am sure, very interesting interventions. Dear friends, unfortunately, our discussion today takes place at a time of intensive unrest in the Middle East. The war in Gaza has extended with ongoing attacks between Israel and Iran. So before examining the role of Turkey, it would be useful to first see these immense changes taking place in our region 2 years after the attack of the 7th of October. Hamas has been destroyed in Gaza. Hezbollah has been mostly destroyed in Lebanon, and we have a new regime in Lebanon. And of course, the civil war in Syria has been terminated with the fall of the Assad regime. At the same time, we have the United States who wish to move away from the Middle East, and Russia that is trapped in a costly war in Ukraine. So at regional level, we see a gap in power, a gap that Ankara is trying to fill today. The absence of an undisputed hegemony in the region makes Turkey become even more bold. Its intervention in Syria is apparent. Its indirect influence in other conflicts in the region is less evident, such as, for example, the distance war, I would say, in Libya, the strengthening of Muslim Brothers in Libya, the leader of Hamas being in Turkey. So Turkey is trying to establish spheres of influence to further consolidate a role of an hegemonic role in the region. So Turkey is not just an observer in these conflicts. Just like Iran, it is always and not by coincidence at the focus of conflicts, either directly or indirectly. It supports terrorist organizations with funds and armament. It aims to destabilize democratic regimes. It considers that its new role imposes it to become independent from the West, and this marks a new phase in Turkish foreign policy, which is characterized by an open revisionism, amongst others. We should not forget that what Mr. Erdogan is mostly interested in is not the role of Turkey abroad, but his own internal political control of the country around nationalist and extremist powers. Dear friends, we live in a region which is a true landmine. We have ahead important risks as a country. The occupied country of Cyprus cannot afford to experiment and go into adventures. We need to come out of these wars and instability in the region unscathed. For the Democratic Party, safeguarding our national interests is the starting point and the most important concern. Of course, we may have different approaches and assessments with regard to international relations and developments. We may have ideological differences in foreign policy issues, but defending the interests of the Republic of Cyprus needs to be the main goal of everyone concerned, as our country continues to be tried 50 years after the invasion and ongoing occupation. We are faced with an existential risk created by Turkish expansion. And we need to form alliances, firstly at European level, but also with countries in the broader region, in the Middle East and the Mediterranean, important countries such as Israel, Egypt, France, and the United States. The ongoing violence with the wars in Ukraine and Gaza and the escalation of conflicts between Israel and Iran and the loss of lives, especially civilians, is indeed shocking for everyone. And of course, we welcome the initiatives of Christodoulidis' government for humanitarian aid to Gaza. These conflicts have disrupted international equilibrium and, of course, are affecting our country. It is for this reason that our event today is distinguished into three thematic sessions that raise important questions: the revisionism of Turkey in the Middle East in light of the developments in Syria, the Cyprus issue at a critical turning point, and resolution prospects, and the prospects of the accession of the Republic of Cyprus to the Schengen zone, economic and political ramifications. So what is the role of a small country? Do we have a role? Can we play this role? These and many other questions will be raised and discussed by the distinguished speakers. Dear friends, Cyprus, despite all its problems, despite the disappointments, continues to be one of the few democracies in a region characterized by fundamentalism, nationalism, and dictatorships, by the dissolution and collapse of state structures. Cyprus is the European state that can become a pole of stability and cooperation. Cyprus is the member state of the EU that implements European values and principles. It is the country that respects and safeguards human rights, and we do this as a country and as a people, despite everything we have been through, everything they have done to us, and everything we need to deal with on a daily basis. And this for us is a source of strength and a source of pride for our people. Thank you. We will continue by a speech by University Professor, former member of the House of Representatives and former member of the European Parliament, Dr. Eleni Theocharous. Dear President of the Democratic Party, dear friends, Mr. Negotiator of the Republic of Cyprus, distinguished speakers and guests at this forum, dear dignitaries of the Democratic Party, ladies and gentlemen, I will read out a speech to you. This is about 1/10 of what I wanted to say. This is the time I have. I do hope I can say what I want to say, and of course, all the speakers will have the time after me. The terms revisionism and revisionist policy of Turkey are widely used by those in Athens who manage political discourse and have also inoculated the Cypriot political rhetoric. However, at the legal and international law level, the term revisionism does not exist except as a unilateral, hostile and arbitrary state and non-binding policy. It is an interpretative term, not a legal term, nor a customary obligation. It is a political term particularly convenient for our diplomacy, but also for our national superstitions and recklessness. It is an invention of a certain political thought to sugarcoat Greece's constant acceptance of the continuation of talks with the Ottoman hybrid state. I consider that if we don't carry out an analysis of the politics of Turkey against Greece and Cyprus, we cannot understand what is happening vis-a-vis Syria and the Middle East. So I would say that, in fact, Turkey's stance is highly confrontational, antagonistic, and dangerously erratic towards Greece and the Republic of Cyprus. But it is extremely efficient as far as most other countries are concerned, the Balkans, Africa, Central Asia. I have just returned from Africa, and I'm telling you, I am terrified by the penetration in Africa. 5,000 children from Zimbabwe are studying with scholarships in the occupied territories right now. The relationship between Turkey and Israel remains undefined for me. As far as Greece and Cyprus are concerned, this famous revision concerns the current international regime in relation to the Treaty of Lausanne, the maritime borders in the Aegean and the Eastern Mediterranean, the sovereignty of Greek islands, and the legal entity of the Republic of Cyprus. Clearly, Ankara seeks the abolition of the Republic of Cyprus and its transformation into a Turkish protectorate. However, Turkey has renounced any right to the island of Cyprus under the Treaty of Lausanne, even though we were subsequently dragged towards the defeat of the Zurich-London treaties that changed the situation. Turkey does not recognize the Republic of Cyprus. It supports the pseudo-state in the occupied territories and continues illegal drilling in the Cypriot exclusive economic zone while obstructing the laying of the EU-Israel electricity interconnection cable and underwater exploration in the Cypriot EEZ. It is challenging the validity of the law of the sea, especially with regard to all Greek islands and Cyprus, openly claiming 280 Greek islands scattered throughout the Aegean and Libyan seas and imposing conditions on the territorial waters and sovereign rights in the seas of Greece and Cyprus. Its intention is to change existing border arrangements and international conventions. Its ambitions reach as far as Thessaloniki, but primarily it aims to secede Western thrust from Greece, applying the successful practices of the creation of the pseudo-states of Northern Cyprus and Kosovo. I do not understand how peace talks are being held with casus belli in case of extension of the territorial sea to 12 miles. The threat or use of force in violation of Article 2, Paragraph 4 of the UN Charter, and here I am referring to the case of Kassos, Erdogan's frequent reminders that he will arrive one night and the refusal to delimit maritime zones in the Aegean and the Eastern Mediterranean unless these are made on the basis of Turkish plans. And also we have the overflights of Turkish fighter jets over Greek islands, the demand for demilitarization of the islands at the same time as the Aegean army is being reinforced with landing craft and special forces. We have the incitement of the Muslim minority in Thrace, the migration issue, and the exploitation of Greece's marine wealth. At the same time, the equipping and modernizing of the occupation forces in Cyprus continues, thus thwarting almost every effort to upgrade the National Guard of Cyprus. And while the Republic is seeking the resumption of talks to resolve the Cyprus problem, Turkey insists on a two-state solution and at the same time proceeds with actions of recognition of the pseudo-state and fortification of the borders. It also continues to take steps towards the EU, either by claiming preferential treatment or towards accession to the foolish, in my view, common defense doctrine of the EU, or even towards full membership. I don't have time to analyze what I have mentioned here. I would like to remind you of the EU Counter Declaration of 21st September 2005 by the General Affairs Council. With this counter declaration, the EU demands the recognition of the Republic of Cyprus and states that Turkey's non-recognition of the Republic does not allow for the accession process to move forward. Of course, we forget all of that. In addition, Turkey has taken unilateral actions that are contrary to applicable international agreements, such as the Turkish-Libyan memorandum. I keep wondering why Athens does not extend its territorial waters to 12 miles, nor declares an EEZ. The speech I'm reading to you now was prepared days ago, but I revised it after Israel's attack on Iran. So far, the situation in the region looks like a thick gel in the perilous convection of 5 ongoing wars, with Turkey maintaining the role of a carnivorous vulture flying over corpses. I thought of this term gel when I went to Semipalatinsk for the first time in northeastern Kazakhstan, where the former Russia, USSR, was carrying out nuclear tests, and there you do feel like this, and the environment is like a gel. That's why I have used this term. At the same time, it continues to seek to change the status quo in our region with the theory of the blue homeland, which it systematically and successfully aims to impose. Ankara's stance towards Greece, the Republic of Cyprus, Armenia, and the Caucasus in general, Crimea, the Balkan, and Black Sea countries, the Near and Middle East and the Near East and Asia Pacific is multidimensional. It is ruthless and it evolves according to geopolitical circumstances, Turkey's internal problems, and the opportunities offered by ongoing and unforeseen developments. At this point, I will deviate from my speech to say that after Israel's attack on Iran, I fear that an attempt will be made to occupy the southernmost part of Armenia in the province of Syunik by Turkey and Azerbaijan. This will cut off any contact between Armenia and Iran and unite through the so-called Zangezur corridor the occupied Armenian and Nakhchivan with the artificial state of the Khazarian Turks. The Zangezur corridor is of key importance for Turkey because even if Iran is not completely destroyed, which in my view is the hidden desire of Turkey, the Zangezur corridor connects Turkey with Central Asia and China, bypassing Armenia and Iran. The genocide of the Armenian population in Artsakh, the result of the coordinated action of Turkey, Azerbaijan, and Israel, is the first step in the attempted occupation of Armenia. The question how long Russia will need the 102nd military base in Gyumri in Armenia and the Menchamor nuclear power plant, and how long it will still need Turkey and Azerbaijan in its dealings with the hypocrites in Brussels remains unanswered. And I stress this, the hypocrites in Brussels. Belgium is the second largest buyer of natural gas from Russia right now. It has been confirmed, however, that Israel's attack on Iran was also carried out from an air base in southern Azerbaijan, which Israel received in exchange for its support of Azerbaijan in the genocide of the Artsakh people. There were reports that Mossad recruited, with the cooperation of Baku, Iranians of Azeri origin for the troops that acted within Iran on the first day of the attack. There are 20 million Azeris living in northwestern Iran, and it was very easy to recruit some of them and play a dirty role. Bayramov, the foreign minister of Azerbaijan, has said that this is not true, but he's a liar. In the Near and Middle East, Turkey continues its expansionist and interventionist policy with the main objective of controlling Syria. And they are the great winner from the reversal of Assad, in my view. In Syria, it has occupied territories and created security zones, while it has imposed the establishment and consolidation of the jihadist Islamist regime of the Golan terrorists, which the EU has naively embraced and adopted. Turkey's ambition is to become the general dervish of the region, replacing the Americans, to take full control of Damascus and to dismantle the Kurdish-controlled autonomous democratic administration of northeastern Syria. The occupation of water resources, the dams on the Euphrates River and the oil fields in the Rojava region are among Ankara's immediate priorities. Water resources in that region are much more important than oil and natural gas. Water resources are of immense strategic importance and consist mainly of the Euphrates and Habur rivers, the Tamka Dam, the Lake Assad, and the Al-Hasaka and Deir Ezor aquifers. Turkey is seeking full military control of Syria, and if it succeeds, it will turn the Mediterranean from Marmarida to the coast of Latakia into a Turkish lake. Another unresolved point is whether or not to maintain the Russian bases in Tartus and Laodicea. With the Kurds of northern Iraq, Ankara has concluded agreements to co-exploit the oil and channel it into Turkish pipelines. The regular, brutal bombardments are aimed at eliminating centers of the PKK and the Kurdish Workers' Party. Turkey is pursuing an expansive, multi-centered and aggressive foreign policy, trying to become a regional superpower with a role on multiple fronts. Many people are saying that it has achieved this. It is a regional global superpower. As early as 1981, it was already unfolding its pan-Turanic vision of a Muslim state stretching from Bosnia to Indonesia. Today, it is confined to the borders of the Blue Homeland, but it is still inspired by paranoid ideas of Ottoman majesty. Ladies and gentlemen, humanity is experiencing a global war with flares and lows and features of total failure. I would like to address to what I consider to be the root causes of many regional conflicts, but I do not have time, although I have a clear and unequivocal views on this. So in conclusion, I will say that Turkey is trying to appear as a neutral mediator, strengthening its international role and taking advantage of the unnecessary EU-Russia confrontation, which is in fact a confrontation between NATO and the United States and Russia. Russia is a European country that could be a valuable strategic partner for the EU. One last word. China is concerned about Turkish activity within the Uyghur Muslim population and does not want a Turkish Islamic awakening because it fears the impact on Xinjiang. And this is why I believe that China will help Iran. Thank you very much. Let's welcome to the floor the expert in international affairs, geostrategic analyst, Mr. George Phillis, for his speech. Mr. President, Mr. Negotiator, dear friend Eleni, dear representatives of the embassies in Cyprus, dear friends, members of the House of Representatives, I would like to thank you, first of all, for this honor to come and talk to you today and to exchange some views. I will begin right away. This is a presentation, and you know, if you try to talk about geopolitics, you could be spending many hours on this. I will try to be brief, about half an hour. The presentation is at your disposal. So we are going to say a few specific things on the issues that the President and dear Eleni have noted. I do agree, Eleni, at about 95% of what you said, apart from what you said about Syria and Turkey being the winners. This is not my view. So let's start with some key features of the international system as it is currently shaped. It is clear that it is changing. A second feature is that this is a changing international system characterized by the tendency to redraw the borders. So this changing system is very dangerous. Do we know what will be created? In my view, and there is a great academic debate on this, the answer is no. For the moment, we can say that we will have a hybrid system, basically bipolar between the US and China, but with features of tripolarism with Russia and perhaps quadripolarism or multipolarism if we also think that India is also an emerging global superpower. And of course, in this changing system, we have regional powers with large degrees of freedom, such as Pakistan, Israel, Iran, Brazil. In this period of the transformation, this is the period of international relations, which allows for states to use the opportunities provided to them for those that are doing the right thing, but the other ones will be faced with other states will be faced with great threats. So we are at the stage where states may emerge, states may collapse, and we may have regional or local wars. Will we have a world war? I can say that yes, maybe, as an expert in international affairs. It's one thing what we want and another thing how things stand. The periods of stability were until 1914, and then we had the Congress of Vienna. We had a balance which led to great alliances. For 99 years, we didn't have big wars. We did have important wars in Europe, but we didn't have a world war. From 1914 to 1945, dear friends, that was a period between the two wars. That was a changing period that brought stability for 30 years between the two world wars, and it created a new system that lasted for 50 years, the Cold War. So from 1990 to this day, again 30 years, we have a changing period again, a period where borders are being redefined, the features of the system are changing, and during these years, the reality will crystallize for the next 50 or 60 years. So I would say that we are indeed at a turning point. So how could we analyze this turning point? The president has said that we should examine the importance of our region, the importance of Cyprus. Please allow me to say, and many of you know my views, I speak as a Greek person, to Greek persons, I speak as a citizen of Greece, to the citizens of Cyprus, the same nation with two states. This is what Turks are doing. Turks consider us as the same nation with two states, and they have a comprehensive strategy for Greece and Cyprus. Now, pretending that we are separate and what will happen in Cyprus will not happen in Greece is the main road towards the destruction of Hellenism. Cyprus is the forefront, is the bastion of Hellenism. If we go through the history of Cyprus, we know that when Cyprus was close to the metropolis, Hellenism was a dominant power in the region. When Cyprus was away from the metropolis, that was when the Hellenism was receding. Look at the Byzantine Empire. When Cyprus was outside the borders of the Byzantine Empire, or no man's land between the Byzantines and the Crusaders or the Arabs, that was the time when Hellenism was collapsing. When this front was united, that was the period from ancient Greece to this day when in these periods through ancient Greece to this day, Hellenism has had the role it deserves. So when I talk about Greece, when I talk about Cyprus, I am referring to Hellenism as a unity. This is what I see. Why is our region important? Because the explanatory model that I am using is functional, and this is the political theory of the Anglo-Saxons, and Mackinder back in 1904 said that those who control Southeastern Europe are controlling the heartland. And what is the heartland? The area of Russia. Those who control the heartland control the world island, Eurasia and Africa. And those who control Eurasia and Africa, the world island, are going to control the planet. This is something simple, but I think that you can all understand that the region of Eastern Europe, from the Baltic Sea, Scandinavia, Eastern Europe, according to this British geopolitics expert, Mackinder, is very important, and we see some key changes. I'm not going to lecture you on geopolitics, but I think that this is very important to see so that we can understand the significance of our region. So what does Mackinder say? I will say it very simply. He feared that at some point the world island will become unified, and when he says joined or unified, basically a power would be created that could expand, extend, and dominate the entire planet. And his main fear back in 1904 until the Second World War was that Russia would somehow join with the dominant sovereign power, Europe. So as Putin says, Europe from Vladivostok to Lisbon. Now, the Anglo-Saxon strategists and others are saying that this is not the case in the foreseeable future, at least, between Russia and Europe because of the war in Ukraine and for many other reasons. But they do see a unification of power between Russia and China. So this is a key issue that we need to understand and take into account. So when we say with Russia and China, there are three key parameters, three cases that we could mention. We're talking about two superpowers. We may have a confrontational relationship. There are the materials to see that there is confrontation in their interests. There is an intermediate situation between competition for the region and alliance for the planet, and the collaborative relationship. So what is the collaborative relationship between Russia and China? This third idea here, and I want to remind you that 2 weeks ago, we saw some documents that confirm that Russians don't feel very comfortable with China for their own geopolitical reasons. Anyway, think of what we saw with the map. There is a collaborative relationship between Russia and China. So if we look at what's happening, there are 4 geopolitical arenas that are around the region of Russia and China. We have a power play in the northern wing. We have a power play in the intermediary region, which I have called the water axis of the Black Sea, the Straits, the Aegean, the Eastern Mediterranean. We have the broader Middle East as Northern Africa, another power play, and another power play in the Indo-Pacific region. All these regions and most of the countries in this region are faced with huge structural problems. So if we think that we have 4 pillars of strength in a state, military, cultural, political, and economic, you will see that many countries in this entire region, for many of these countries, one or more of these pillars have a structural problem and are collapsing. This means that we will have a new structure within these countries and in this entire system. So look at this. This is a map of the EU before the war in Ukraine, looking at the new sources of energy. So the key sources of energy, if we exclude China and the US, Australia, of course, the pipelines in our region, and Africa. You have discussed about Africa. There is what we call Scrabble for Africa, and Turkey is playing a role in this. It is something that was happening in the 19th century, and it is happening today as well. Look at our region. At the center of this corridor for new sources of energy. But as Eleni, we have potential producers, we have transit countries and hub, and Cyprus as a transit hub, and Greece, and pipelines could go towards Eastern Europe and beyond. So the region of Hellenism is not only important as a transit, but also as a producer of energy. If you see the supply chains, again, the same trend. So they will go through us, and rare earths, for example, the areas of interest, again, demonstrate the importance, Mr. President, of Cyprus and Greece as for transit trade as a key geopolitical arena for Europe. And as we understand, there is what we call the Belt Road Initiative, the so-called Silk Road of China. Greece and Cyprus are part of this road. But there is also an alternative that is emerging right now, which is the IMEC. In theory, theoretical for the moment. Of course, memoranda of understanding have been signed for this India, Middle East, Europe corridor. It is not by chance that Mr. Modi is in Cyprus today. Of course, this has to do with the Pakistan-India short war we had a few weeks ago. It is not by chance that we have strikes in Haifa. This is an exit of this corridor. This is competitive too. This is antagonistic to China. Could be for some, but not in fact, because this project is much smaller than the Belt Road project of China. And in a free economy, of course, there are alternatives that we need to examine as Hellenism, of course. And so let's look at the macroscopic picture of the model I have shown you. If you unify these two geopolitical arenas, we have one. This is the Silk Road, east-west, and we have the vertical axis as well. And I love history and the history of the Byzantine Empire. And if you unify these two, this is the road from Varangi to the Greeks, when the merchandise used to come down from northern, eastern Europe, the Baltic, they would come down to Istanbul, Constantinople. So we have these two routes, these two itineraries, and they converge in our region, in the Hellenic space. And this is why we are important. Cyprus is a small country, but it is not small. It has a multiplier effect for Hellenism if we can take advantage of this properly. And I move on with Kissinger. Not everybody loves him, but amongst the Greeks, but he's a great academic. And nonetheless, he said that there are 4 key reasons for a global conflict today: serious escalation in the relations between the US and Russia, collapse of the Sino-American relations, which is the Thucydides trap, as we call it, a large crisis in the Middle East, or the failure of the EU to fulfill its role as a superpower. So which of these is not true today? Perhaps the first one, the serious escalation in the US-Russia relations because of Trump, but who knows what will happen. So in modern history, for the first time, these 4 key reasons may apply in one way or another, and this is very concerning. And I will focus on the Middle East, just not to scare you too much. So the Cold War in the Middle East, in order to understand what is going on, we need to understand the conflicts. We have a conflict of dogmas: Sunni, Saudi Arabia versus the Shia in Iran. So we have a conflict of dogmas within Islam. We have an intra-Sunni conflict for leadership: Saudi Arabia versus Turkey versus Egypt. We have an interstate conflict for regional sovereignty: Saudi Arabia versus Egypt versus Turkey versus Iran. And we have a cultural conflict: secularism versus theocracy, and so on and so forth. We have the conflict between Israel and the Palestinians, and the Kurdish issue. If you want to analyze what's happening in the Middle East, we need to understand that all 6 conflicts do take place to a greater or lesser extent. So all of these coexist in different doses in each country. And this helps us understand what is actually happening. And we could say, in short, that we have 4 shapes, schemes, if you want. We have the Sunni quartet: Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, United Arab Emirates, Egypt. We have the Shia, Islam, radicalism, Iran, Houthi, Hezbollah, Shia guards in Iraq. We have the neo-Ottomanism and revisionism, Turkey, Qatar, and Somalia. And we have Israel, a category of its own. And within all of this, we have this situation. So if you have these 4 regions together now, we have a confrontational relationship. As you see on this slide, we have a confrontation between Israel and the Neo-Ottomans, a collaborative between the Sunni Quartet and Israel. We have conflicts and collaborations, as you see, with the arrows. And in the middle, we have competing entities such as Somaliland, Ethiopia, Syria, Eritrea, Sudan. Is this complex? Yes, I'm trying to show you in 3 slides to organize all of this. And of course, much greater analysis is needed, and we cannot do this here. And also, we have selectively confrontational or collaborative relations between all these players. Dear Eleni, the Turks will fail in Syria. I know that we have diplomats in the room, but it will be their grave. Syria will be Turkey's grave. Why? We're saying that there is a Syrian government, but look at this. The Syrian government is not controlling the whole of Syria. It is controlling approximately this region here. So these are the regions controlled by Turks with occupation. This region with purple is the Kurds, with the Arab races controlling it. And there we have the Israelis who have extended their control from Golan Heights to Hermon Mountain to control the Bekaa Valley from here in Damascus. And here we have Druze. So this entire situation, we could say that if Erdogan could be the winner here, then all of this should have been united under the government of Sara. But is this the case? No. The Kurds have their own army. They will not be absorbed by the Syrian army. They are controlling oil, as Eleni has said here. And not only this, but the oil will be used for their own armament. And if they want, they will give to the central government for use. So PKK has handed over its arms, but I will remind you that when Öcalan surrendered to the Turks in 1999, a few months before that, we had the Washington Agreement. What did that say? Talabani, Gamarzani, Clinton had invited them. They agreed at the White House. The civil war stopped there, and we had what was created there. And they gave, and the Americans helped Turks get Öcalan, what was the exchange, a Kurdish entity, semi-autonomous in northern Iraq, Syria. What's happening now? Exactly the same thing, if I may say so. So, in order for Turks not to attempt anything here, because there is a respective situation in Syria, the PKK said that they are handing down, surrendering their arms. This is what's happening now. And the Russians are still in the region. The Americans are equipping the region here. And we also have some resistance from the previous regime. So what's the situation? Also, when the Turks tried to go to central Syria to establish bases, the Israelis bombed them. So what victory for Turkey? And remember this, it will be their grave there, in my view. Syria will be Turkey's grave. At the same time, we have the current strikes in Iran. I will not focus on this a lot, but I will say that we have precision strikes on nuclear facilities, military facilities, anti-air ballistic missile facilities to mitigate retaliation, and precision strikes on leaders and the scientists of Iran's nuclear program. What about Turkey? Eleni said something which is very true indeed. Turkey has the largest number of embassies, I think, in Africa compared to any other country. Maybe it's the second, the first or the second. So it has a military presence with Sadat, which is the corresponding Wagner in different regions, as you see here, and it is trying to control the scrabble for Africa, as I said right now. So this is a new 19th century. Here we have its military bases. These are the countries where it has military bases. Turkey. So look, these are the borders of our heart, of Turkey's heart, borders of the heart. Azerbaijan, according to Erdogan, Kosovo, Albania, Sudan, Qatar, Libya, etc. So what am I saying? Am I trying to say? Who's destroying the borders of the heart of Erdogan? Hellenism and Israel, I would say. So in these 360 degrees, we have more than 200 degrees that comprise Hellenism and Israel. This is how the Turks see us. If we pretend that they don't see us like this, then there is no chance for us to survive. So what they will do in Cyprus, federation that will be a satellite, and that will make the Republic of Cyprus a satellite and a captive, and then they will go to the islands of the Aegean. After the Treaty of Lausanne in 1923, Turkey is trying to change that treaty. They are saying that it is unfair for their coasts. They say that they don't have a big front on the Eastern Mediterranean, and we are not replying to that. And in my view, this is the reality that we are experiencing. And if we don't see this reality, then in the way Turks see us, then we will be destroyed. So the nature of the threat for Hellenism. Also, what I wanted to show you here is that the young Turks and the Kemalists are saying that they want all this for defensive reasons. They want to create a zone of security around Turkey. The Neo-Ottomans, Ottomans and the Pan-Islamism movement. So the Kemalists are saying, we want the islands because somebody may attack me in Asia Minor, and the Neo-Ottomans and the Pan-Islamist movement are saying, I want the islands because they were mine. Do you remember what Erdogan said, that the horses stepped on those islands? So the borders of the heart go up to India. Perhaps we could say that the borders of the heart of Greece are up to India. This is Erdogan's logic, and we're just listening to him. And it's not Erdogan, because now we go to this other fairy tale. Imamoglu is good. And Imamoglu said that the best part of his life was when he was in northern Cyprus. Isn't he a Kemalist as well? We need to know who we're talking with and what they want. That's our problem. Sometimes, many times we pretend that we don't understand what others want. But as you understand, what they want is the absolute control of the water axis in the Black Sea. And that will be quick. And you understand, if we have the four great superpowers, what is happening in the Middle East, it is a total mess. So what are the Americans doing? The Americans have a specific global strategy. They are creating 3 buffer zones for the Russians and the Chinese in the pivot to Asia region. They're trying to have a defense line, Korea, Japan, Taiwan, one with AUKUS, and through the ASEAN, also through Quad They want to have a buffer zone in the Indo-Pacific involving India and in relation to China. And how are we involved in all of this? We have the architecture of security in the Mediterranean with these schemes in which Greece and Cyprus can be leaders if we want to do that. And of course, we have Eastern Europe there as well. So what are Greece and Cyprus doing? We do have an upgraded cooperation on defense, strategic dialogue. You see that in the last, that there is strategic dialogue between Greece and the US for equilibrium in the Middle East. We have the collaboration between the 5 countries. We have the Philia Forum, and we have the situation in the NATO with the 2030 report that considers right now Turkey as a non-ally of the US. And I'm concluding, and excuse me for taking this long. What is happening is that we have powers around the key Eurasian power that the US are trying to stop. On the one hand, we have the Shanghai Covenant, the Eurasian Union, the Russian NATO, I would say, and we could say that there is a crescent that is trying to create a buffer zone with these powers. And I move on to the 5th key feature of the international system. All these 4 key features that we described, well, there is a 5th one, and this is the new medievalism model of organization that we currently have. In my view, there is a very complex system that Hedley Bull, back in 1977, a professor at Oxford, called a new medievalism model, which has multiple sources of power and centers of power, local, sublocal, subnational, and pandemics, like in the Middle Ages. We have experienced that as well. And I will go back to Sir Halford Mackinder, the father of geopolitics, who said that the acquisition of Greece by a great land power, Russia at the time, will probably give that power the possibility to control the entire world island. So our region is one of the most critical ones for balance in the entire world. And since we're talking about Middle Ages as well, and addressing the Greeks, we need to remember what Konstantinos Palaiologos said in his last speech before the fall of Constantinople in 1453. So he was saying to the Greeks at the time, imagine that you're taking part in a hunt for wild pigs, so that the disrespectful understand that they are fighting great people. Thank you very much, and I'm sorry if I have tired you. Thank you for this very interesting analysis. We will now continue to the 2nd thematic session, titled "The Cyprus Issue at a Critical Turning Point and Settlement Prospects." And I would like to call to the floor the Greek Cypriot negotiator, Mr. Menelaos Menelaou. Good afternoon, dear Acting President of the Democratic Party, Your Excellencies, ambassadors, members of diplomatic missions, dear professors, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank you for the invitation. It is a great pleasure for me to be here and speak during this session together with Mr. Pantelidis and Mrs. Erotokritou. I will focus, of course, on the Cyprus issue, and I consider that, of course, things can be interpreted correctly if seen in a broader picture, and this is why I consider the previous speeches very interesting. The last unresolved effort in Grand Montana left behind an important key that included for the first time the most critical aspect of the Cyprus issue, that of security and guarantees. This effort was the result of a course that started with the agreement in 2006 between Tassos Papadopoulos and Ali Talat. That was followed by talks 2008-2010 and further talks between President Anastasiadis and Mr. Akinci. Convergences were reached that consolidated key aspects of the Cyprus issue. For example, the implementation of the 4 freedoms of the EU, population ratios, abolition of guarantees, and withdrawal of troops, with some issues remaining. There were also issues in which the arrangement improved some aspects even of the Constitution of the 1960, such as the system of governance with weighted voting, cross-voting, that would legitimize the leadership of the Federal Cyprus from the entire population, abolishing the most divisive element of previous treaties, which was the full ethnic division in exercising voting rights and the expression of political will of Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots. This element, the abolition of this division, the creation of conditions of governance of the country based on political programs, like in every modern democracy, is perhaps the most critical safeguard for the sustainability and functioning of the federal state and for developing unifying elements in the economy and politics, and addresses the issue that federation is not by definition divisive, but through the proper arrangements we can overcome the divisive elements through correct arrangements. It is for this reason that in our view this key should be safeguarded and should be the basis for a renewed efforts of talks to focus on the remaining issues, and we do have remaining issues. Since then, efforts have been made again to put things on track. There was a meeting in Berlin between Anastasiadis and Akinci in 2019, and this was followed by 2 meetings in Geneva in April 21 and in New York in September of the same year. The last 2 meetings between Anastasiadis and Tatar, who in the meanwhile was imposed by Turkey as leader of the Turkish Cypriot community from October 2020, marking a turn of Turkish policy towards the 2-state solution, to which they focus to this day. In 2022, at a time of elections in Greece, Cyprus, and Turkey, the question was raised on how to manage the situation until the completion of the elections, so that we could clearly address future steps for the resumption of talks. In this period, the UN Secretary General asked high-ranking officers to follow up on the situation. Further to that, our side gave margins of flexibility to the UN Secretary General to appoint the margin of flexibility with regard to the title of the envoy, so that the UN Secretary General could proceed with the appointment of an envoy after many attempts to stop this on the part of the Turkish side. It was feasible in the end to appoint Mrs. Olgin, which was announced in the beginning of January 2024. This appointment was an important step, and we knew, of course, that the journey would continue to be difficult in the summer of 2024. The Turkish side did not accept the continuation of the mission of the personal envoy, and as a result, we had a cessation until her recent appointment further to the enlarged meeting in Geneva last March. And the personal envoy visited Cyprus, Athens and Ankara, and she will visit London and Brussels before coming back to Cyprus for another round of talks before the next enlarged meeting that will take place according to the program at the end of July. The key pillar of this effort is to use the Euro-Turkish relations from the summit of the EU in Helsinki in 1999. Since that summit to this day, a series of decisions by the EU have established a framework for connecting Euro-Turkish relations with the Cyprus issue, updated based on the changing data. I have said how the membership of Cyprus has had a pivotal role in achieving convergences that strengthen the viability of the federal state. Another critical issue where we have seen the effect of this membership has to do with the positions of the Turkish side, with which we were faced, such as the persistence for permanent derogations from the European acquis or the so-called primary law. It is clear, and this is not theoretical either, but that a part of the acquis, it is part of the acquis of the talks that no issue of primary law is raised, and the European acquis will apply to the entire territory of the Republic of Cyprus, and Cypriot citizens will have the same rights in Cyprus as all European citizens across the territory of the European Union. I'm not saying that the Turkish side has abandoned these positions, but what I am saying is that there is no room for such approaches to be accepted in the current framework. But it should also be clear that the existence of guarantees and foreign troops on the soil of the federal Cyprus within the EU is incompatible with that membership and a modern European state. The EU has recently announced the appointment of Mr. Johannes Hahn as its special envoy for Cyprus. Great effort has been made by the government and the president for this. There is also a joint letter by the president of the European Commission and the president of the European Parliament to the UN Secretary General last March during the recent informal enlarged meeting for the Cyprus issue in Geneva. This underlines the importance and the commitment of the EU to the efforts for a solution to the Cyprus issue, a solution that is compatible with the principles and values of the EU, the European acquis, and the laws of the Union. The European Union does not substitute the United Nations. We have said this many times. It complements and assists and strengthens the conditions for using mutually beneficial factors and see how we can create conditions based on which all stakeholders can realize that a solution to the Cyprus issue is more advantageous to the continuation of the current status quo. The regional and global conflicts underway are underlining also a well-known reality to us, that the fundamental basis of international problems, such as the Cyprus issue, is the international aspect, the invasion and occupation. In the case of Cyprus, this underlines that in order to reach solutions, it is necessary to address situations in a context that addresses specifically these root causes. And it has been established, especially in the talks that have taken place from 2004 onwards, that for the internal aspects of the Cyprus issue that concern the Greek Cypriots and the Turkish Cypriots, either convergences have been achieved or these issues are within a radius of convergence. And this confirms the fact that obstacles in relation to the internal aspects of the Cyprus issue are not insurmountable, and therefore what we need is to focus on the foreign dimension. So in conclusion, we are at a critical turning point for the Cyprus issue and for many other issues as well, in a very volatile situation, a situation of uncertainty, of shifting, of changes and transformations in the regional system. These features, apart from international relations, are also evident in the political arena and in the interior of states, channeling phenomena of citizens moving away from politics and promoting extremist elements, and we should be aware of this. There are concerns, reasonable concerns, that Turkey's approach is based on an attitude of power, and the current regional context is further strengthening its regional ambitions and limiting the potential for flexibility. Nobody can predict with certainty what will happen. We have seen in the recent past tactical maneuvers, not real changes. What is certain is that we will not know if we don't try, if we don't exhaust all efforts with consistency, dedicated to our goals through initiatives, with being aware of the importance of having the moral advantage in the diplomatic and political scene. All of these make up the assertive stance that we are following to achieve our goals, so that we can also prevent undesirable consequences and complications. It is in this spirit that we are addressing the future steps, and we will make every effort so that we can be directed towards tangible outcomes. Thank you very much. We would like to call to the floor for her views the acting president of the Democratic Party, Mrs. Christiana Erotocritou. Dear friend Menelaos Menelau, dear Eleni, dear professor, dear members of the House, Mr. Secretary General, the Cyprus issue is indeed at an important turning point where geopolitical interests and balances are shaping a landscape of challenges and opportunities. So it is imperative to speak with clarity and national self-confidence. For us, the fundamental principles of the Cyprus issue remain stable and modern. a sustainable and functional solution on the basis of the bizonal bicommunal federation with political equality as defined by the United Nations, and not as unilaterally seen by Ankara. Sovereign Cyprus fully in line with the European acquis, without foreign troops, without guarantees, without intervention rights, no matter how they are described. But Turkey insists on a different trajectory with demands that lead to division and not to a solution. It refers to a two-state solution, to the preservation of Turkish troops, and for the indefinite dependence of the Turkish Cypriot community, if not the whole of Cyprus, on Turkey. This is not negotiation, but imposition, and we need to reply in a strategic way. So our European membership is our most important weapon. A free, united Cyprus will have advantages for everyone, especially Greek and Turkish Cypriots. It will be a pillar of stability in the Eastern Mediterranean, a hub for energy and green transition. It will allow us to fully use the geographical position of Cyprus without the indirect approval and the compromises with Ankara. We will become a reliable partner in the EU, ready to contribute to the needs of the other member states and to serve the best interests of Europe without needing the approval and consensus of Ankara every time. And these advantages need to become conditions and not requests in this juncture, where Turkey wishes to upgrade its customs union with the EU, have access to trading advantages. Cyprus needs to clarify that we cannot have European progress for Turkey without progress on the Cyprus issue. This is imposed by the principle of political equality and dignity. Shaping alliances with key partner countries precedes the implementation of such a strategy. The rational analysis of the 50 years of invasion and occupation leads us to this. The stance of Turkey in these 50 years has not changed. It is not becoming more intransigent and more harsh. Its stance, its methods, its views on the negotiating table have always led to the creation of a state under the custody of Turkey, under the Annan Plan, and also in Grand Montana. The positions are the same. The fait accompli, of course, are more difficult to reverse, and this is visible on the property issue. After 2004, we have constructions on Greek Cypriot property, and in other areas, the Turkish occupation army has not changed, and Turkey has not changed its stance with the settlers, and the predictions of the occupied territories becoming Taiwan or being recognized by third countries have not materialized. So we are correctly following a tactic on arresting those who exploit Greek Cypriot properties in the occupied areas. Although we feel bitter from the stance of the international community vis-à-vis the invasion and ongoing occupation, the Cyprus issue is an international issue, and it cannot disappear magically from the global map, and it cannot be downgraded to a bicommunal issue. We remain dedicated to the solution of a bizonal bicommunal federation with the proper content. This is the moderate and realistic approach to the settlement as against the patriotic views of abolishing, of rejecting the bizonal and bi-federal state. This will be the best gift for Turkey. The internal situation in Cyprus the economy, the operation of the institutions, and the adaptability of the Republic of Cyprus to the new energy situation are decisive factors for resolving the Cyprus issue. Regaining the trust of citizens that goes through economic growth, justice, the proper operation of the institutions will strengthen the relations between citizens and the state and enhance political leadership with united citizens. Important investments have been announced, and this creates a strengthened state with greater self-confidence that will be able to have greater negotiating power in the future. Dear friends, in closing, I would say this. The firm positions of the Democratic Party have been confirmed by history and developments in recent years. I would like to stress this not as self-justice, but as a parameter of self-criticism, which we should all be carrying out in order to redefine our course. It has always been our position, the position of the Democratic Party, that the foreign aspect of the Cyprus issue, the occupation troops, the guarantees, the security are the cornerstone of any solution. And I fully agree with the positions of the negotiator, Mr. Menelau, for giving priority to the foreign aspect. Guarantees, troops and security have been the policy of the Democratic Party always and in the past and now, and we stress the consistency of our positions over time on the Cyprus issue. With regard to the foreign aspect, that is when the last attempt at Grand Montana collapsed, and this was admitted not by a president of the Democratic Party, but by the former president of the Republic, Mr. Anastasiadis, with whom the Democratic Party disagreed substantially on the Cyprus issue. The Democratic Party will continue wisely and consistently to defend the unanimous decisions of the National Council, claiming a solution that will withstand the test of time and promoting the benefits of a correct solution for both communities. We will continue to reject Turkish hegemony, either clear or implicit, either total or partial, on the future of the southeasternmost country of the EU, depriving the Union and its citizens from the benefits of Cyprus being a gateway to Asia and the Middle East for Europe. As Democratic Party, we aim at a united Cyprus, a country that does not forget, a democratic country, a country that knows where it is headed. Thank you very much. We now give the floor to the member of the House of Representatives, member of the Standing Committee on Foreign Affairs of the House, Mr. Chrysis Pandelidis. Mrs. Acting President, Mr. Negotiator of the Greek Cypriot side, dear members of diplomatic missions, I would like to thank the leaders and representatives of diplomatic missions for their presence, and with all due respect to the Cypriots in the room, I would like to say that I would like our foreign diplomats to listen to what I would say. So today at this meeting, we're discussing developments in the region and the international situation in general. and our discussion focuses on this Cyprus issue in this thematic session. So I would like to ask you to do an exercise and assume that the Cyprus issue has been resolved, or that it is resolved in this international context. And the reason I want us to do this hypothesis is to terminate the naive thinking or the wrong assessments, especially internally, that in the case of a solution of the Cyprus issue, in some magical way, Cyprus will move out of the heat zone in the Middle East and will stop having at 60 kilometers to its north the most expansionist Turkey of the planet, country of the planet, Turkey. This will never happen. And when I try to assess the data on the Cyprus issue, and I'm trying to see this solution working based on the position of Turkey. So there are three parameters here. In my humble view, the position of Cyprus is its position as an equal member, first of all, in the EU as a full and equal member of the Eurozone for 17 years. And the second parameter has to do with the international position of Cyprus in the Eastern Mediterranean and the Middle East, in this neighborhood of ours. So the geography will not change even when the Cyprus issue is resolved. And the third parameter regards the relations of Cyprus with other countries, cooperation with Greece, cooperation with Israel, relations with Lebanon, with Egypt, with Syria, with Jordan, with countries of Asia, a series of bilateral relations that need to continue to develop and exist even after the solution of the Cyprus issue. So what is the first question that we must pose to ourselves? Will Cyprus be able, once the problem is resolved, to play this constructive role that we all want Cyprus to play in these three parameters? I am claiming, and please note this, that if there is a veto in the decision-making process within the Turkish state after the solution between the two communities, if there is Turkish army with any title and any capacity on the island after the resolution of the Cyprus issue, and if we have Turkish guarantees in any way after the resolution of the Cyprus issue, then Cyprus will not only be able to play the constructive role that every country should be playing internationally, but will eventually perhaps collapse. Mr. Menelau has rightly said that we have the issue of security and guarantees on the table for the first time in 2017 after many years, and this is a success, and it is a success that we're discussing this today. But let's look at what is happening on the ground. So imagine now, with the development underway, imagine Cyprus having to take a position within the EU bodies and be threatened by a Turkish Cypriot veto. Would Cyprus be a hostage to Turkish foreign policy or not? Because, dear diplomats, dear friends, it should be understood that although the Greek Cypriot community believes in the interests of the Republic of Cyprus to a large extent, the Turkish Cypriot community has not convinced us that they give priority to this. I am claiming that the Turkish Cypriot community does not have the ability to put the Cypriot state as a priority, and I support that if there is a veto procedure, Cyprus, the small island of Cyprus, will not be able to take a decision. It will not be able to propose its views in the EU bodies and contribute constructively to the EU. Why? Because Turkey does not want the EU to proceed in a constructive and productive way. Turkey, ladies and gentlemen, is not Greece, which is a member state of the EU. It is not Cyprus, which is a member state of the EU. Turkey sees the European Union in an antagonistic way. So if Turkey has an indirect role in decision-making in the EU through Cyprus, then this will be counterproductive. So let's go now to the role of Cyprus in the region. Is there anybody who believes that with a Turkish veto or Turkish mingling in the Cypriot affairs, Cyprus will be able to develop any cooperation with Israel? And I'm not referring to the strategic and defense cooperation that needs to be there. Have we ever thought of how much we need Israel in terms of research and technology? And I know that this is important for all of you. Health issues, for example, when we are in a difficult situation. Have we ever thought what is the bond with Israel and the potential bond with Israel in issues of energy? So, if the Turkish state has an indirect role in the exercise of foreign policy by the Cyprus state, then we need to rethink many things. And I'm not referring only to Israel, but to other countries in the region, Lebanon, etc., because I repeat, the priority of the Turkish Cyprus of Turkey is not Europe, but expansionism. And I'm concluding with the issue of the role of Cyprus in the region. Will Cyprus, if its decisions depend on Turkey, will it be able to be, for example, part of the axis that needs to be created, that is being built between Asia, India, the Middle East, Cyprus, Greece, and the European Union? Will we be able to have any system of security that will include this axis if Turkey has an army on the island, even under a different capacity? Will this axis exist if Turkey has any role as a guarantor power? The answer on political terms, always, I'm not an expert in international relations, is that this will not be possible. And I have mentioned these three parameters of the international role of a country, of Cyprus. And please bear this in mind, dear diplomats, that with a veto in the decision-making and so if there is a Turkish army in Cyprus and Turkish guarantees or any other guarantees, Cyprus will not be able to have a constructive and productive and peaceful role in this very fluid world that is surrounding us. And if in the past years this didn't sound right, now with the wars underway in a region with the missiles above our sky, we can all understand the value of Cyprus being a truly independent pillar of security stability and peace, with decisions being taken by Cypriots in democratic ways and with democratic conditions. Thank you very much. Thank you for your presentations, and we now proceed to the third and last thematic session of our forum, the importance of the accession of the Republic of Cyprus to the Schengen zone, economic and political ramifications. We will connect online with a member of the European Parliament, member of the Democratic Party and S&D, Mr. Kostas Mavridis, to speak to us about the European dimension. Good evening. I hope you can hear me. Could somebody confirm that you can see me and hear me? I cannot hear you, but I understand that you can see me. So I will speak slowly for the interpretation as well. I apologize for not being with you. I'm speaking to you from Strasbourg, where we have the plenary and with some important issues. I am the negotiator of our political group for the 7.5 billion euros relating to financial assistance to Egypt in the form of a loan, and you understand that this is a critical issue and I need to be here for the final negotiations. Now, with regard to the issue I have been asked to discuss, I would like to congratulate the organizers, and I consider that this process that we have launched as Democratic Party to generate policy must continue, and it is beneficial for everyone. What is the Schengen zone, and how does the EU see this, and especially the European Parliament in relation to Cyprus? I will put this very simply. The Schengen zone comprises 25 member states of the EU. So we have outside and Ireland that are not members of the Schengen zone, and we have some additional members that are European countries but do not belong to the EU. So 25 EU member states and 4 European countries. So this entire population is about 450 million people. And for these people in this geographical region of 25 plus 4, there are no internal borders. So the member states that become members of the Schengen zone have a free movement of persons. This is the very essence of Schengen, and this brings about benefits. Before I explain some of the key benefits and why these are important for Cyprus in particular, I would like to say at this point that the reason for which, at least initially, Cyprus was outside the Schengen zone was because when we acceded as the Republic of Cyprus with our whole territory, and this is the first achievement on the part of a member state, there was no precedent to that. The Republic of Cyprus acceded to the Union with its entire territory in 2004. Based on the accession treaty, which is the supreme law in the EU, this is primary law, the community acquis, the European laws were suspended on a temporary basis because of the ongoing occupation in the northern part of Cyprus, where the Republic of Cyprus, the government of Cyprus, does not exercise effective control. So this problem at the time, it was thought that this should be renegotiated and revisited in the future in view of a solution to the Cyprus issue or some other development. We are now in 2025. 21 years have passed since our full accession to the EU. So it is now time to take some decisions. The key benefits for any member state of the Schengen zone focus on the fact that the free movement of persons, and in order to understand this simply in Cyprus, just like we go from the free area of Famagusta through Larnaca and Limassol to Paphos, in the same way, we can do this in the Schengen zone. So from the moment that someone is within the Schengen zone in a lawful way, then they can move freely within the zone. This has multiple benefits. For example, for the economy, where, for example, activities and operations of economic stakeholders are taking place in an easier way and more efficiently at lower cost. This is also important for tourism. I could also mention other benefits, but especially for Cyprus, I consider that our accession to the Schengen zone, our accession to any measure of deepening the Republic of Cyprus has also added political value for us in Cyprus because of the ongoing illegal occupation. The legal basis of our accession to the Schengen zone, therefore, is the Treaty of Accession. So the European acquis was suspended in the occupied territories, and therefore the Republic of Cyprus needs to justify the to fulfill the criteria of the Schengen member states so that it can be accepted as a member of these 450 million citizens, which is the largest free zone of free movement of persons zone in the world. Somebody could say, but what has changed since 2004, and now we feel self-confident to proceed with our accession? I will be very brief. Firstly, the imposition of sanctions because of the ongoing war in Ukraine, the imposition of sanctions on Russia, has essentially affected the issues we are discussing. So issues relating to visas, especially towards third countries. So what we have implemented in Cyprus because of the sanctions, and we fully aligned with the huge economic and political cost, this is helping us because of the infrastructure to proceed with our accession to the Schengen zone. A second development, in the next 2 months, we expect that Cyprus will have a privilege that is almost unique in the world, that very few countries have vis-a-vis the United States in the world. So the United States will decide to abolish the demand for a visa for Cypriot citizens visiting the US, hopefully. And the third development is that in 6 months from today, Cyprus, the Republic of Cyprus, will assume the presidency of the European Council. Therefore, in January 2006, and for 6 months, the Republic of Cyprus will preside over the European Council. And I will answer the question on the concerns whether our accession to the Schengen zone will create what some people called a hard border between the free areas and the occupied territories. I will put this as simply as I can. What we have in Cyprus does not compare with the border that exists between Ireland and Great Britain. There is an international official border that Ireland has chosen not to put obstacles But in our case, we are referring to an illegal Attila line, and therefore, until there is a solution that will rid us of the Turkish occupation, what will change is stricter procedures because of our accession to the Schengen zone with regard to who can enter the free areas. What I am describing, however, means a lot of things. We live in an environment of threats, and many times these threats are not the well-known threats to us, but we also have hybrid threats. For example, issues relating to illegal migration, internet, online issues, and other fraud. So in this environment, by acceding to the Schengen zone, we will have police cooperation with all other member states. We will be able to share databases and information in the central system and much more. And I will conclude with a recommendation. I feel that at last we should seriously, the Republic of Cyprus should seriously consider the following. Everybody who enters Cyprus illegally, and everybody who enters the occupied territories illegally enters Cyprus illegally, and that person should not be entitled to apply for anything the moment that they have entered Cyprus illegally. And I hope that with our accession to the Schengen zone, we will have serious benefits, not only economic benefits, but also regarding this issue that we call defense and security. Of course, this does not concern so much defense, but the security of the member states. So with these few words, maybe I should conclude, and I will say that as we speak right now at the plenary of the European Parliament in 1 hour, we will have a discussion on the 40 years from the establishment of the Schengen zone on the 12th of June 1985 by the first 5 founding members. And in that declaration, there is a reference for Cyprus. This is a declaration that was unanimously adopted by the European Council and says, we note the acceleration of the efforts of Cyprus to fill the criteria for completion of its accession to the Schengen zone. I can assure you, and before this is done, I can assure you that my political group will be represented by a colleague who will make a positive reference, because the European Parliament needs to support the accession of the Republic of Cyprus to the Schengen zone. So this is all from me. I think I have kept my time. Thank you very much, Mr. Kostas Mavridis. We now have a speech by economist Mr. Tassos Yasemidis. Good evening. I will keep my time. I will be brief. We do realize that belonging to a larger community in terms of the economy allows you to make investments, it gives you greater potential to draw knowledge and human resources. It allows you to trade your products in an easier way, and it gives investors a greater feeling of confidence if you're a member of the Schengen zone. So In brief, we have a free movement of persons. This helps the economy in the sense that businessmen and employees in companies can move quickly and freely within the countries of the Schengen zone and carry out the work. With regard to trade, we have a common market, single market with regard to the trading of goods. Of course, all European standards need to be fulfilled, but it is mostly the countries of the customs union that facilitate the exports of goods. And of course, Cyprus is an island, so you realize that benefits are more for Central Europe because a truck can move freely from one country to another without any problems in the transportation of goods. Another important element is that we are strengthening investments, and this has been seen in countries that have acceded to the Schengen zone, and this is because it is easy for a company to establish a subsidiary or a branch. It is an easy process. Of course, they need to look at the tax regime of each country. It is possible also to draw European funds if you are a member of the Schengen zone. There are special programs in the EU. And lastly, it is much easier to provide services with employees moving freely from one region to another. With regard to the possibility for visits and work, Cyprus allows citizens to visit Schengen. So if you have a Schengen visa, multiple visas, that citizen can visit Cyprus for up to 90 days. With regard to work, there is a lot of discussion on whether available jobs will be limited. Each country may set some limits with regard to the number of jobs and how work permits will be granted at European level. For example, in Germany, somebody who needs to be employed, they apply to the ministry, they obtain the work permit, and in 5 years, they can apply for the so-called European permit. Now, in what areas do we have significant growth when a country exceeds the Schengen zone? Tourism, of course, here we need to see other issues, such as, for example, access and air connection, especially with Schengen countries. This will significantly strengthen hotels and catering. With regard to trade and transport, because there is free movement within Europe, within Schengen, it is easy to import things, export goods, and for Cyprus to be a first stop for exporting goods outside the EU, you understand that there is a natural obstacle because we are an island. It is also important that increased investments will create new jobs where we don't have adequate resources. For example, now we have a shortage in technology staff. We will have access to a greater pool of people who could be employed in Cyprus. Another important area is investments in real estate. We have seen countries such as Spain and Portugal increase their demand in real estate. We need to be a little bit careful because there is also the program where somebody can get the visa in Cyprus. That will be a Schengen visa now. So increased demand for real estate creates other problems internally, and the government will need to give some offsetting measures. And we have challenges such as issues of security because there is free movement of products and persons, so there should be controls. Some controls. It has been stressed that we will have access to the Schengen information system. So this is a huge database that we can use, and finally, we have seen this recently at times of crisis, whether they regard migration or work, it will be possible to have checks and temporary non-application of Schengen measures, but generally accession to the Schengen zone for all countries has been positive in relation to tourism and also more generally for businesses because of the opportunities provided for clients and businessmen to move freely. Thank you. We will now give the floor to the General Manager of the Institute of Certified Public Accountants of Cyprus, Mr. Iordanos. Good evening. Firstly, I would like to congratulate the Democratic Party for this excellent opportunity to discuss issues of strategy, issues of foreign policy. Indeed, a noteworthy effort. Of course, I'm one of the last speakers, and this gives me the advantage of commenting on things we have heard. I have been instructed to talk about Schengen zone. The previous speakers have said most of what I wanted to say, but there are a couple of points that were mentioned before, and I would like to note them. Professor Phyllis earlier talked about the importance of Cyprus as a guardian, I would say, of the Byzantine Empire. I want to remind you that in 1191, we were occupied by the British. 12 years later, the crusade that collapsed, that destroyed Constantinople. From 1191 until 1960, Cyprus has been was under foreign rule, and of course this is important for security. Something that Mr. Menelaou has said. He has talked about the economic dimension of the negotiations. So we saw that very strongly with the Annan Plan in 2004. We rejected it on the third page in terms of the economic dimension because it was unfeasible. Now, with regard to Schengen, I will be very brief. I don't want to tire you and repeat things. It is indeed an opportunity for the Republic of Cyprus, an opportunity, a political opportunity, first of all, for the reasons mentioned by Mr. Kostas Mavridis. We are strengthening our position. We have equal treatment with other member states, and the economic benefits have been mentioned by Tassos. I would also add education, because with the ease of flights and visas, etc., we have more opportunities in addition to tourism, trade and investments, to focus on education as well. And also we are basically strengthening the four basic freedoms of the European Union, which is what the Schengen zone wishes to strengthen. The abolition of internal borders is essential. This is something that we see, especially in Nicosia, on a daily basis when we stop at the end of Lydra Street. So our accession to the Schengen zone, on the one hand, will bring us European resources and other benefits, and on the other hand, it also highlights the factor of security. Kostas, and this was also in my notes, I would mention this as well. So what will be our borders? Cyprus acceded the Union with the suspension of the European acquis in the occupied territories, because the Republic of Cyprus cannot exercise effective control. But on the other hand, we need to see where we draw the line and how. Strengthening our security at the point of access to the Republic of Cyprus needs to be upgraded, definitely. And the only concern is not to give out wrong messages or give a foothold to anybody to interpret this differently. Also, I would say that indeed there are two countries, Cyprus and Ireland, that are not members for different reasons. We saw this with the discussions on Brexit, how two lines, two borders cause so many problems between the people. I will stop here. I don't want to tire you because the main political and economic benefits have been mentioned. My main message is that this gives us a negotiating weapon as a Republic of Cyprus to strengthen our position within the EU. And this will also be a tool for better negotiations on our national issues. This is all from me. Thank you. Finally, I would like to give the floor to the General Secretary of the Democratic Party, Mr. George Solomon. So good evening. So imagine being last and following excellent speakers, but you will bear with me because there are some important issues that we need to talk about. So I am last because first of all, I would like to thank the foreign policy team of the party. We would like to congratulate in particular Mr. Andreas Nikitaras, if he's here, who is basically organizing these events almost alone. I am taking out lots of things from my speech. So we have talked about the Schengen zone in the third session, and we have forgotten a very important parameter that people don't really know what the Schengen zone is. And I'm not the one saying this, but we have numbers and figures. They don't understand the benefits, that it's not just when you go to the Athens airport and you need to go through security control. There is so much more, so many more benefits that accession will give us in addition to European integration. So it would be good to see the political ramifications of accession to the Schengen zone, the participation of Cyprus is a clear confirmation of full harmonization with European standards in managing the borders, migration, and security. It is a form of political ratification of our European identity at a time when European popular ideas try to bring back national borders as a tool of isolation. The accession of Cyprus sends a clear message that our country belongs to the core of the EU, even though it is far, and remains dedicated to the goals of the EU by becoming an important and firm partner of the rest of the EU member states. Accession to the Schengen zone will also strengthen our bilateral relations with other states through our daily operational collaboration on issues of security and migration. So this will foster bonds of trust and common interests. The Cypriot authorities will have access to European security tools such as SIS2, and this will strengthen our operational capacity in critical areas. And we should place great emphasis on that, especially in view of current developments as described by previous speakers in our neighborhood and in the Middle East. Our participation in the Schengen zone strengthens our capacity to participate actively in initiatives in the field of defense and security. The presence of Cyprus in the common European space of freedom and security will allow our more active involvement involvement in mechanisms such as Frontex and European policing mechanisms. Cyprus, as the island in the eastern Mediterranean for Europe, therefore acquires increased geostrategic importance. But we should not also ignore the economic ramifications of the accession described by previous speakers and the movement of persons, which strengthens tourism. And we should not remember the contribution of tourism to our GDP, which is about 15–16%. So you realize the importance of Cyprus as a high-quality tourist destination. Cyprus will become even more attractive for European citizens, especially when not so many passport controls will be required. At the same time, trade and business relations will be facilitated as the crossing of businessmen, investors, and professionals will be more efficient. Cyprus will become an even more important hub between Europe, the Middle East, and Northern Africa. Of course, we should also speak about the Cyprus issue. This was developed by Kostas. We could perhaps ask the question whether accession to the Schengen zone can help towards the solution of the Cyprus issue. Although accession is not a direct tool for the settlement of the problem, it does create a political and legal context that can serve as a catalyst. The implementation, the application of European acquis throughout the territory through the Schengen mechanism will strengthen responsibility for all stakeholders to work towards a solution. The existence of a single European space of security and freedom in which Cyprus participates on an equal basis demonstrates the need for a solution that will ensure the full implementation of law and freedoms for all Cypriot citizens, including Turkish Cypriots that are holders of the Cypriot identity, although they have not contributed to the European integration of Cyprus. Kostas mentioned something, and I made a note of those who come illegally to the Republic of Cyprus, also from the illegal airport in Dimbu. So these persons who come illegally, who enter illegally, cannot move freely. So of course, the invasion and occupation have created so many problems and difficulties. At the same time, the presence of the Republic of Cyprus at the negotiating table for Schengen will strengthen our diplomatic significance. Cyprus will become an interlocutor in a space where critical decisions are taken for the European policy of security, migration, and border management. This allows us to shape policies and affect strategic choices. Of course, nothing is for free, and accession will bring with it challenges. The need to strengthen policing and customs structures, and as we are informed by the government, we are on a good track. There are various prerequisites that need to be fulfilled. The Republic of Cyprus has made significant progress, but we need to be consistent and coordinated, and we are close to this European integration. The accession to the Schengen zone is not the end of a journey, but the beginning of a new era that is achieved with our European integration. It is the recognition of our institutional maturity and a tool of enlarging our potential at many levels, political, economic, diplomatic. So let's use this historic opportunity with seriousness, with consultation and national responsibility. Cyprus can be present at the focus of development. Accession to the Schengen zone is yet another step towards the fulfillment of this vision for Cyprus. Thank you very much. I would like to thank you again for your presence, and I would like to thank the foreign policy team of the party. Ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of our forum. We would like to warmly thank all the speakers for their meaningful and very important presentations. We would like to invite you to a cocktail and wish you all the best. Thank you for being with us today.